Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Witcher Companion. As you can tell, there's been a change of scenery. I'm back in my hometown house, living with my parents. I graduated college a couple weeks ago. I moved out of my apartment. I don't really have a desk. I'm at my dresser, and it's uncomfortable. And obviously, the blinds are behind me, and they're very bright. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do about that yet. But you can finally see my Siri poster. It was behind my head in my old apartment, like when I was making these videos, so I feel like you could never see it. But there she is. This is going to be on the short story. Where's my book? This is going to be on the short story, The Lesser Evil. And honestly, I think it is the most famous short story out there for The Witcher, and one of the most important, if not the most important, to read as far as your understanding of the world goes. I think that if I were to make one short story required, like if you could only read one, it would probably be The Lesser Evil. Maybe The Edge of the World if you want like world building details, but you'd pick that up in Blood of Elves anyways. But Lesser Evil, very important to figure out how Geralt operates. As usual, we'll start off with the voice of reason that comes before the short story. There's these people that come to the Temple of Melitele, a part of the White Rose, which apparently is an order that does not take kindly to a witcher being housed in a lander. But basically, this tees up our short story by being the first time we hear about the Butcher of Blaviken. And also, Neneki is just so badass to be like, well, actually, your Duke has problems getting it up and performing. So actually, if he wants to keep doing all that, he's going to want to show me some respect because I'm the one giving him his aphrodisiacs. Pop off, Neneki. Pop off. So without doing too much summarizing, just getting into what I think is important. There's this conversation with Geralt and Stregobor, and there's something that Geralt says here that I think is very important for how sorcerers operate in the world of The Witcher. He's talking about Stregobor's role in finding out these women who were cursed by the Black Sun. And he says, "You took advantage of a madman's ravings to strengthen your own authority, to break up alliances, ruin marriage allegiances, stir up dynasties. In a word, to tangle the strings of crowned puppets even more." That is very much how sorcerers operate. Most sorcerers are paired with a king or just the royalty of the four kingdoms, and then some are sent to Nilfgaard. It's a whole deal, but they are often the puppet masters pulling the strings for the royalty that they are assigned to. So we're getting a little bit of a glimpse of that. As I mentioned in the last video, this short story is also very much giving us Geralt's philosophy when it comes to his job. We have a line here where he says, "I kill monsters for money. Beasts which endanger people, horrors conjured up by spells, and sorceries cast by the likes of you, not people." Which isn't completely true when he's forced to act, and obviously we see that in this short story when he's forced to act, but that is very much where he resides, and we saw that with Nivellen, where even a beast, even a monster, where like he says beasts which endanger people, and Nivellen wasn't endangering anyone. So he has his own code that he has made up for himself. And we get maybe the most famous line in any of the Witcher short stories and saga overall. It's this line he says to Stregobor. "Evil is evil, Stregobor. Lesser, greater, middling, it's all the same. Proportions are negotiated, boundaries blurred. I'm not a pious hermit. I haven't done only good in my life. But if I'm to choose between one evil and another, then I prefer not to choose at all." That's Geralt in a nutshell at the beginning of this saga. Never wants to choose between two evils. Obviously, we know that he does anyways, because Renfri is kind of right when she goes on her spiel saying there's only evil and greater evil, but behind it all is a true evil that forces you to act, an evil you can't even imagine. And at the end of the story, I mean, obviously Geralt was motivated to choose the lesser evil. He even said as much to Caldamain. Said, "We need to pick the lesser evil." I just honestly want to put this in here because I really appreciated Geralt's burn to the half-elven guy who's like very much not appreciative of seeing a Witcher here and is being maybe a little rude. And Geralt says, "A bit more tolerance, if you please, as I see your mother must have wandered off through the forest alone often enough to give you good reason to wonder where you come from yourself." Okay, called that guy's mom a whore, and honestly he deserved it. When Geralt meets up with Renfri in the tavern, and they talk, and Renfri says, "Stregobor dies tomorrow. It would be the lesser evil if he died alone." And Geralt says, "If he did, yes. But in fact, before Stregobor dies, several other people will die too. I don't see any other possibility. And Renfrey confirms and says, several Witcher is putting it mildly. This conversation that Renfrey and Geralt have in his room later that night, where Renfrey says there are two people who can prevent the violence here happening. And she says one of them is Stregobor, voluntarily, handing himself over, which Geralt says would never happen. And then this is where Renfrey name drops the Tridem ultimatum. She says she's going to present that to the sorcerer. And Geralt doesn't know what that is, and she says, well, that's my sweet little secret. Okay, girl. And then she says the other person who can prevent that violence is Geralt. Geralt doesn't know what the Tridem ultimatum is at this point, but she knows that Stregobor is not going to give himself up willingly, and she probably knows that even if she performs the Tridem ultimatum and starts slaughtering people, Stregobor still isn't going to come out. So she's very much relying on Geralt being forced to act and choosing Stregobor. I think that's important to realize, because when she says there's only two people who can do it, she really means Geralt. And she's going to do whatever she can to get him to do that. And that's where we get to see another tactic that I believe is used pretty often in the Witcher series. I've plugged her channel before in later videos because I've recorded them already, but there's a Witcher content creator named Vera who does videos, and she often talks about how women in the Witcher universe will use sex as a means of manipulation. I feel like in the Netflix series this doesn't come across super well, but Renfrey is here in Geralt's room and is trying to sleep with him and succeeding as a form of manipulation. It's not like she's just, oh, this Witcher is so... No, it's a means of manipulation to hopefully sway him to choose killing Stregobor when the time comes. Obviously, as I already mentioned, we see once Geralt puts together what the Tridem ultimatum is and what it means, we see that Renfrey was completely right. There is a true evil behind everything that forces you to act, forces you to pick a side, and that's what Geralt does. He says we have to take the lesser evil and flies towards the market day. That's something else that Netflix just didn't really incorporate well, is the Tridem ultimatum itself, because I don't remember it being mentioned. And I just rewatched it recently. And also the market is like, they're not really even at a market. It's very much not busy. So like, there weren't a lot of stakes, but the fight did look good. He really earned the name in that one. But yeah, obviously she dies. And to the very end, she was going to try and kill him. She had that dagger hidden behind her back. And then here comes Stregobor coming down the cobblestones, being a dick. Oh, we better perform an autopsy. He's so stupid. I mean, like, obviously, I wish it had been him. This is something that Netflix tried to do, but they didn't quite pull off. Geralt takes from Renfrey something that, like, went on her sword. A little, I don't know, pin, something that I don't know what you would call it. And that becomes a symbol of his neutrality, or rather, casting his neutrality aside. And we see that in end of the third season, he finally decides, hey, let me not spoil all that shit, but he finally decides to pick a side, and we see him use that thing he got from Renfrey and like throw it to the side as a symbol of, oh, he's picked a side now. He knows what he's going to do. And Netflix tried to do that, and I actually think that was a really good idea, but they didn't make a big deal of him taking Renfrey's thing. They never brought it up again for like 2 seasons, and then it shows up in the third. And you're like, what is that? So I think that would have been cool, because sitting here, having killed Renfrey, and Stregobor being a dick right afterwards, he's like, if I had chosen, things might have been different. I think that's such an interesting place to leave him at the end of this short story. And it honestly kind of affects him a lot, because the Butcher of Blaviken, that name gets kind of known all around the continent, and people recognize him from that. So I don't know, it's a good short story, shows you where he's at the beginning of the saga, and I'm excited for the next one, which will be A Question of Price. It'll be very important for the main story of the saga, but like not that much. It's not that important, but it touches on it. So we'll see you then.